Good afternoon, everyone. I am Sharon Porter. I'm the Senior Vice President of Public Relations with Enlivian. And today I have the pleasure to be joined with Chris Campbell, our Senior Vice President of Partnerships. Chris, I'm sure I've messed that up.
That's fine.
But you oversee all of our partnerships, Chris.
That's it.
And attorney Kenneth Snow with the Snow Legal Group. Today, I'm actually really excited about this conversation because we're doing Know Your Rights 101, right, with the Snow Legal Group. The Snow Legal Group is a recent partner of Enlivian. And I'm going to let Chris talk about how we got connected in the work that we've done together in just a brief time.
Yeah, thank you, Sharon, and good afternoon, Attorney Snow. Good to see you again.
Good afternoon. Good morning.
Yeah.
Yes, good afternoon.
There we are. Yep. Yeah. One of the exciting things about what I do is to, form these great partnerships, and in the process of doing that, meet really good people. And if you've been around Charlotte for any length of time, you've probably heard of Attorney Kenneth Snow. I mean, his reputation is outstanding in the legal world. I used to be a probation officer, so I used to know his name and his work then. But in this relationship, it was totally different. I mean, we got a call from Kenneth Snow's team, and he wanted to sponsor a family for the holidays, right?
Wow.
And these are so easy because he made it easy for me. He just said, listen, give me a family, tell me where they live, tell me what they need, and we'll be there. That's exactly what him and his team did. So that's how we started this relationship with the Snow Legal Group, is by him sponsoring a family for the holidays. And it was fantastic. I could probably spend about 20 minutes talking just about that, but I won't. But I would just say the family was really touched. And yeah. I think Mr. Snow got more out of it than the families did when he actually brought the gifts and things. So that's how it started, Sharon.
Attorney Snow, we don't often get lawyers who say we want to sponsor families. So tell us what led you to that moment.
Well, let me just talk a little bit about my background. Yeah, I'm from Georgetown, South Carolina. Grew up there. I had a very big family, 7 siblings. First in my family to attend a 4-year university. I'm a product of Johnson C. Smith University. Certainly the first in my family to receive an advanced degree. First in my family to be a lawyer. So I understand regular folk. My people, my mother and father were very regular folk. And so I've always tried to be mindful of that because there are many good people, including my mother and father. My parents were just regular folk, but good people. So along the way, we weren't rich at all, but we made things work.
Yeah. And
I realized that my beginnings were very blessed. And so I never wanted to forget that. And so no matter what I do, how successful I am as a business person or as a lawyer, I am still a human being first, and I'm a lover of humanity. And certainly I want to always be a human being first and give back when I can.
Well, thank you, and we appreciate it. So let's just get into it. Like I said, today we're talking about Know Your Rights 101, and you're going to have information that we can all benefit from. We know that people in Black and brown communities don't always have the best interactions with police, but when you know more, when you're more educated about what your rights are, you can have what we hope is a better experience and a better interaction. So we're just going to get right into it. Chris and I are going to go through a round robin of questions that are on everyone's mind. All right. So if you were to think of, give us 3 things that we need to know, top 3 things that we should know if we're getting pulled over or stopped by a police officer.
That's an interesting question because what first comes to mind is someone's safety. I mean, our rights we know we have rights, but the main thing that comes to mind is I want to make sure that human being goes back to his or her home, goes back to his or her family. And so one of the things I would say, if you're stopped by a police and you're in a vehicle, I would say, hey, you see the blue lights? I would slow down, put my flashes on, drive to a safe place, and stay and pull over, come to a stop as soon as you can. I would tell people, especially at night, to make sure they move to a lighted area. And the reason you put on your flashers is because you don't want them to think that you're speeding or try to elude. So you pull over. I would then say, the second thing I would do if I pulled over, I would just sit there and perhaps even put my window down. It depends on the circumstances. But certainly I would not make any movements towards my glove box to get anything until the law enforcement officer comes to my window.
Okay.
If he or she asks me for my license and registration, I will inform them that, hey, my license and registration is in my glove box or in my center console. And if you have a weapon, if you have a concealed weapons permit, you should always tell them that you have a concealed weapon. If you have a concealed weapons permit, that is the safest way.
Okay.
Now, quite frankly, do you have to say anything when they stop you? No. In fact, I would encourage you, especially some people sometimes they've had a cocktail or two. Do you have to give any statements about your whereabouts or where you were before? No, you don't. I think you're required, though. You are required to give them your license and registration, but that's being cooperative. So that's how I would handle that.
Okay. That's a good point. And you have brought something to me. I remember years ago, I was going up a highway and I just happened to read some notes online. I think it was maybe Memorial Day weekend. And someone said, these are the things that you need to know. And so I was randomly pulled over and I had a police officer say to me, where are you going? And I said, north. And he said, well, where are you coming from? And I said, south. Right? I was trying to be cooperative.
Good answer.
I say, good evening, officer. And he asked me like 4 times, where are you going? And I said, north. Right? Because I think sometimes we get scared and we're like, I got to tell him exactly where I've been going. Right? So talk about like that, like how much do we have to share?
I say less is best, quite frankly. You don't have to share anything with them other than give them your license and registration. But so they don't have a right to know where you're going or where you're coming from. That's not pertinent to them as to why they're stopping you. And first, let me say this: I don't have anything against law enforcement.
Absolutely not.
I have 2 brother-in-laws and a nephew now in law enforcement. Had a brother in law enforcement, so nothing against the men and women in blue. No. But you do have rights, and oftentimes I'll tell people less is best. And if a police officer or law enforcement has to ask you permission to do it, that means they need your consent. And without their consent, there's something called Fourth Amendment, right? So if they search your vehicle or search your person and they don't have the necessary requirements, meet the necessary requirements to search you or search your vehicle, then they're in violation of the Fourth Amendment, which means simply, if they find something in your vehicle or on your person and they didn't have meet the requirements to search you or search your vehicle, that evidence is thrown out. We call it fruits of the poisonous tree. So therefore, I would never ever consent to any search of my vehicle or my person. And I'm a law-abiding citizen, but I just don't. And let me give you an example why you don't. Just say, for instance, you were riding your cousin in a vehicle and you were stopped. You didn't know, but your cousin left some contraband in your vehicle that day. Well, it's your car. You're driving the vehicle. You consented to a search of your vehicle. And lo and behold, the officer finds some contraband, some marijuana, or a firearm. Well, the presumption is it belongs to you. It's in your possession. At least there's a presumption that it is. So that's what the officer has. You've given him consent, so now that is evidence.
Yeah.
But if he didn't have the right to search your vehicle or didn't have consent, then the likelihood is that's thrown out. Another example, you don't have to say anything. Sometimes we're stopped by police, and good people, they'll ask, well, have you been drinking tonight? You don't have to answer that question.
Oh.
Okay? You don't have to answer that because that gives them even more right to further detain you if you admit that you were drinking. So certainly, first I would say, do not drink and drive. Certainly don't
Number
get
one.
drunk and drive.
Number one.
You don't have to answer that.
I mean, so what would you say if an officer says, "Have you been drinking?" What do you say? I mean, if you say don't
Officer,
answer it.
I would say, officer. I might say, or I might not. I might say something or not at all. If I said something, I would say, officer, respectfully, I refuse to answer that question.
Okay.
You don't have to answer that question. And a good police officer would not get angry with you because you have a right. As long as you're respectful to them,
okay,
that's all they can ask for. And if you don't want to say anything at all, politely give them your registration and license and don't say anything at all.
So, Attorney Snow, you hit on this a little bit in your first response, but what would you say are some of the biggest mistakes that people make when they encounter a police officer, whether it's in a vehicle or just maybe in a store or something? What are some of the biggest mistakes you see people make? Uh-oh.
Talking too much.
Okay.
Oh.
Yeah. Okay.
More times than not, I'll tell you, I enjoy what I do and have a successful practice. But I would say a good percentage of my clients would not be my clients if they were simply shut up.
Wow.
As simple as that. You have a right against to protect yourself against self-incrimination. So you don't have to admit to anything. You don't have to talk. You don't say anything. So be mindful. And oftentimes, I can tell you the examples of what clients may have done something now. And again, as a law-abiding citizen, I would always advise clients first not to do anything wrong.
Right.
But you also want to protect your rights. So don't say where you were last night, because you know what they do when you say, "Well, last night I was with my friend Franklin." Well, guess who they're going to interview?
Yeah. Franklin.
So I would suggest, where are you coming from? North. We headed south. That's all you have to say. You should say, quite frankly.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to say it was reading someone's legal advice. I think it was a lawyer friend on social media. Like, hey, it's going to be one of those weekends. They're going to be out there looking for you. Here's what you need to know, which is why I'm so grateful for this conversation, so others can have the benefit of that knowledge. So we see that there's a lot of things caught on camera. Everyone's got a cell phone, right? And so we see the rise of, I mean, we're not unfamiliar with, people of color are not unfamiliar with the negative interactions with police officers, but now we see them more because they've been caught on cell phone and cell phone video. If you happen to be in that situation, does a police officer have the right to tell you you can't record?
You know, I'm so thankful for the advent of cell phones and cell phones with cameras, because but for that, we would certainly not have a groundswell of, I don't think, participation from our Caucasian brothers and sisters, because now they see what brown and black people go through on a regular.
Right.
And so I would encourage people to record interactions with police. There's nothing against that. Again, I have loved ones who are law enforcement. In fact, I'll tell you, one of my brother-in-laws, he said he doesn't mind, because he's a good police officer. He does not mind that you record his interactions, because he's doing. He tries to do what's lawful.
Right.
So you are absolutely in your right to record any conversation or interaction with police officers, even as a third party, as long as you're not within the zone of danger and you don't interfere with the officer in his or her performance of duty. Then you're perfectly fine. I would just simply move to a safe area, not interfere at all with their with what their duties that they're performing, and certainly film. Because as we know, but for those with cameras, the day that George Floyd was killed,
Right.
we would not have, I think, the groundswell of participation from people around the country demanding that Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
One of the things I'm really looking forward to in 2021, specific to this partnership, is it's not just, it started from the sponsorship of the family, and you're here today sharing some valuable information, but I was just so excited that your team was willing to look at, doing some things throughout 2021. We're looking at some workshop series that we'll do maybe quarterly. We are going to kick off in February with the topic around expungement. And I know that I've been asked so many times about expungement and what qualifies for it, when to do it, when you can and cannot do it. There's just so much information around expungement. Can you just give a little preview of what folks have in store in terms of that topic in February when you talk about that? Just maybe a little preview around what that's all about.
First, what an expungement is, or expunction is when you have your criminal charge or record erased or deleted. And it allows you, the process allows you that you don't have to admit that you were ever charged or convicted of that crime. So the statute, the law says, if you've been charged with a crime or convicted even of a crime that is now expunged, you no longer have to even acknowledge that you had a charge in the first place or it was expunged. It's like it's never happened. Only within a few exceptions that you have to answer. And I can tell you, for example, as a lawyer, when I applied for the bar exam, that question is asked. You have to answer that question, whether you were convicted of a crime or not. And that is something, or charged with a crime even. That's something you have to answer, but that's a rare exception. For the most part, you don't ever have to admit it. And so the rules have gotten even better in the state of North Carolina. When I first started practicing law some 20 years ago, it was only a few exceptions. There was only a few ways to get an expungement. Now, things are a lot more liberal in North Carolina, so people are able to get expungements a lot easier. My colleague who knows that upside and in and out, Attorney Agent Satchel, will be speaking about that in this series.
Gotcha.
That's going to be great. Chris, what do you see from our residents? Like, what are the challenges that you see our residents have because of things on their record?
Oh, wow. First of all, jobs. The challenge with being able to secure employment when you have to check that box.
Mm-hmm.
That you've been, it's the thing you've been, you check whether you've been convicted of an offense, but even if you don't check the box that you haven't been convicted, still when the background check is done, the charge might be there, and that may sway the decision of the person doing the hiring. So I would say that's one of the biggest things that we see is the challenge relative to gaining employment when you have something on your record.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That certainly affects people adversely affects people relative to employment. In my office, we do background checks here. And sometimes even if there's a charge that's been dismissed, as a business owner, if I see, that you've been charged with larceny or shoplifting, something dealing with dishonesty, that's something of that nature, I will certainly take a pause.
Sure.
And that's just the truth. So I would encourage you, if you can, to seek advice relative to getting expungement or learn more about that, because that can mean the difference between you getting the job and not. And even as a young person, especially as a young person, we know that in our community, there are many young people that have convictions or even charges on their records that perhaps they wouldn't have gotten had they were maybe if they were in a different part of town, a different officer arrested them. A lot of times, in many cases, police officers have discretion whether to arrest or charge someone. And we know that's just a fact of life.
Right.
Wow. Yeah.
Right.
Thank you.
So why is it important to have legal representation, even if it's a public defender?
Well, I can tell you this. I've been practicing law for 20 years, and I have passed 2 bar examinations. So I know quite a bit about the law,
Yeah.
but I would never represent myself in court. Number one, because I'm emotionally tied to the case, and because I don't know it all. I can tell you that. And what I've seen in my years is sometimes people think, oh, you know what? I don't need a lawyer. I'll take mom and dad can go with me, and we'll just enter a guilty plea because I really did it. Well, there's a difference between guilty of a crime and factual guilt and legal guilt.
Mm.
There are a number of ways that you can maybe enter a diversionary program if you had someone who knows what they're doing.
Sure.
Meaning that you could perhaps have a lawyer who represents you and say, hey, would you dismiss this charge if my client did this program? Would you dismiss this charge if my client did community service? It's just, attorneys just generally know what to do to assist you in making sure that you explore all opportunities. Again, please, parents especially, I've seen many well-intended parents that decide that they want to practice law and take their children to court. And that child is now stuck with a record of larceny, something on their record, because mom decided, well, just tell the truth. Well, mom, I need you to stay in your lane.
Yeah. Yeah.
Get a lawyer. And certainly, if you can't afford one, you can have a public defender appointed to you. And I have many friends that are public defenders. And like anything, you have some really good public defenders out there. And even in private practice, there's some bad attorneys, bad private attorneys. And so, yes, there are some bad public defenders. But many of the public defenders that I know and I've come in contact with are good, hardworking people.
Yeah.
And they want the best for our clients. So there's nothing wrong with getting a public defender. I get it that sometimes you want a private lawyer. And yes, we try to make sure that you feel that you're in a different environment and that you get all of the special attention that you need on your case, that you feel that you're more than just a number, that you feel like you're a client.
Sure.
And that you're important, that you're individual. But certainly, if you cannot afford a private lawyer, do not represent yourself. It's a big mistake.
Wow. So I'm going to say thank you for all the great advice. We are looking forward to, in February, starting off this series with the Snow Legal Group for our residents. And I think we have contact information if you're our resident, right? If you live in one of our properties or you're a Section 8 voucher holder, to learn more about the legal workshop with the Snow Legal Group, they're going to educate you, right, about your rights, right? We all need to be educated about our rights, as well as doing some expungement work. And so you can contact Dawn Cuffey, and her email is up there, which is dcuffie@enlivian.com. That's Dawn Cuffey. You can email her. But if you want to get in touch with the Snow Legal Group, you can always call, and make sure I'm saying it right there, Attorney Snow, 704-358-0026 at www.snowlegal.com.
That's correct. Just want to remind people that most of the people in Charlotte know me as being the lawyer that handles serious criminal cases. And I still do. But we have a team of lawyers here and support staff. And we also handle personal injury cases, catastrophic injuries, as well as wills and estates and family law. We have an office in Rock Hill, South Carolina, as well as one in my hometown, Georgetown, South Carolina. So certainly if you need legal assistance, please reach out to us. Again, our number is 704-358-0026.
Attorney Snow, Chris, thank you for your time here today. You can see all of the social media for the Snow Group. We look forward to this partnership. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And we want everyone to stay safe this weekend. Take care. Have a good one.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
Thank you, Attorney Snow. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.